I've been racking my brain out for the last hour, not in a bad way, in a sort of fun way, but I've been racking my brain out, trying to come up with a name for my music, like an artist name. Uh, on this YouTube channel, I'm called ATC Diddley, and I think it's stupid, and I don't really like the name. I don't know if anyone's watched these, and I don't know, they're like, "Oh, it's a good name." I don't know. I don't agree. It's one of those things I thought of. I think it was just on the job, and I wanted to create a YouTube account, and I was like, I'll combine my initials with Bo Diddley, and I think it's a fine name depending on what you're doing, but uh, frankly, I'm not the charismatic go-getter womanizer that Bo Diddley sort of propped himself up to be, and the name was very fitting for him and not exactly for me or the music. I mean, I wasn't even thinking that when I came up with the name, like, oh, I want to be this ultra cool guy. I just was like, well, how did Pink Floyd come up with their band name? Well, they used was the name of two blues musicians. Their original guitarist and lead singer, Sid Barrett, combined the name of two of his favorite blues musicians, and you get Pink Floyd. I can't remember who the guys were. And I was like, well, I'll just pick a musician I like who is a little bit more obscure. I'm not going to use something like Floyd that is still very relevant or Slipknot. Uh, so yeah, that's how I came up with it, and it's something I thought I would maybe run with. But the more now, I'm actually gonna put my music out to a distributor, so some of it can go on Spotify. I think maybe I found a direction I wanted. At very least, I've posted some stuff on TikTok and gotten a good response, which I'm proud of. I think the one track I made called "Just a Case" is pretty good, all things considered. I'm proud of it. And some people requested I put it on Spotify, so I'm like, well, maybe I can make some money off this little hobby here. If some people want to listen to it. And when I'm to post on Spotify, you first need to go through a distributor. So there's a little bit of a setup there. It's actually not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And after that, you have to pick an artist name. Now, I guess I could just go with ATC Diddley and see how like silly that sounds to actually say it out loud. It's one of those things in my head it sounded a lot cooler. But I am like, well, I could always just I could just use my real name and then change it, but I don't really want to do that. I do have a kind of unique full name, but it's just not what I want to do. And I feel like it's in a way sort of subliminally tells people something about your creativity if you just use your real name. Maybe I'm overthinking that aspect of it, but if you can come up with a good name, it kind of tells people like, I might want to listen to this music. That's a good sounding name, and this is someone who's creative. They came up with this, and I guess that's what I wanted to talk about is how valuable I think a name is. I think there is a lot of value in the name of a musician, a TV show, to lesser extent a YouTube channel. I don't think it's totally invaluable, but there's some reasons I don't think it is as much. And even a person's name. I was watching this video by Vsauce, and I don't know why I feel so formal when I'm doing this video. I felt a little bit more relaxed in some of my other ones. Um, oh well. I was watching a video by Vsauce, and he was talking about how some words sound thin and some words sound fat. And like itsy bitsy would be like it sounds like tiny or thin, whereas like ooglaba, I don't think that's what he used. That is just has a fat sound. Gargantuan. You think something fat or girthy, something with a lot of mass. And according to his video, they went to a bunch of different cultures. I don't know if he did, but someone had. And they basically asked them, they showed them two shapes, and then they gave them two different sounds. And they asked them, what do you associate with one and what do you associate with the other? And over again, like 90% of the time, it turned out as you would think. So I think this is like an inbuilt thing where we just respond to certain sounds a certain way and we have certain associations. I mean, I'm sure we've all been in the place where we hear a certain name and we think, oh, that person's really good looking, or oh, that person's fat. Now, this can become tainted because, especially when you're younger, you know only one person with a certain name, or maybe it's a politician or a celebrity or someone you know in real life. And then when you see someone else with that name, you're like, well, they don't look like a Ryan to me. But over time, you see more people, so those associations kind of go away. I I would think with names, there's a little bit of nurture and nature going on. Where you associate a certain name with a certain person because of, well, how it sounds, but then over time you can make other associations. Either way, I think it's something you have to take into account because it is going on. And the thing is, when you name your band, first impressions matter. I think there's sort of this. See, I don't like sounding like I'm always picking on liberals or the left, but I really don't know a better way to put it other than this sort of liberal mindset that, oh, you aren't going to be judged for your name or your face or your first impression. Like, all of that is something you can form, and that's a really nice thought, but I don't think that's the way the world works. I think, when you hear a name, you get an impression of something. When you see a band's album cover, you instantly get an impression of that band. I think a great example is, you know, if you look at something like Dark Side of the Moon, I didn't listen to that album till I was in college. But as a kid, I would always see that album cover, and I just always thought that had to be the coolest thing ever. And it turned out to be a lot different than I expected, but it was almost like I wanted to keep listening to it because I wanted to like that album cover. And I'm getting a little off track here, but I think basically names and first impressions are very important things. And if you look at something like, basically you're going to be attached to that. Now, I think some people end up getting so successful with something that they can redefine that in the cultural space because they're so popular. Once you're maybe someone like the Beatles, you can just like poop out an album with a certain name and people are going to take to it because you're the Beatles and they're going to hear that everywhere. Whereas like they could have an album with like a stick figure on it, like a really skinny person, and call it like Oogla Boogla, and maybe that would hold better. I think another thing to take into account is that like my tendency is to drift towards like for names or whatever, like, oh, this is kind of a cheesy name, but I can explain that to people, like, yeah, I couldn't come up with a better name, but like your audience, the nobodies, they don't care. Like, how many times have, like in my own experience, have I come across a band with a bad album cover? Probably wasn't what they wanted for the cover. They probably would have preferred something better, but I don't know what their actual vision is. For all intents and purposes, it's what's there, and that's all that matters. And I think it's the same thing with the name. There's basically like certain ones that work for bands and certain names that don't. And if I really wanted to study this, I would probably, like, you'd have to not only look at the successful bands, you'd also have to look at all the failures. Because, like, I have a few written down from 70s, 60s, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, King Crimson, Genesis. Um, you know, it's really hard to determine how much a name has to do with success, but then you can take the names of a bunch of different pop artists, Billie Eilish, Doja Cat, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Dua Lipa, and there is like a very different sound to them. Like just the phonetics used in there. Um, Doja Cat's one that really stands out. I don't think a heavy progressive rock band called Doja Cat is really going to sell unless it's sort of like an ironic thing or a parody. Or once again, they're really good at selling it. They've got a major label behind them. They have really good connections. I guess it could work. I would love to hear examples of this. I'm willing to be proven wrong or at least expand my perspectives. Um, I don't know. Another artist that comes to mind, I don't have him written down here, but is Tattoo. I think they're Russian. And they were like a pop group in the early 2000s. And they sort of, I don't know, the name Tattoo, is that how you say it, Tattoo? Or maybe I'm getting that wrong. I don't know. You like the name, the sound. I'm sure a lot of people call them that. It has sort of a naughty sound to it, and that's the way the group come across. Then like metal bands, Slipknot, Slayer, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Mushroom Head. All there's diversity there. Metallica is another great one, but like all of them sort of fit their what you think that, what their music's like. Now this isn't like a comprehensive list by any measure because we don't know how much like hearing those names over and over again has made those associations. And I think another thing is you could probably find plenty of failed bands with just as good names. I don't see it as much, but there are a few smaller artists that, at least to me, I think they have a really good name and maybe some good album art. They have some good stuff going for them, but doesn't seem to take off. Now, YouTubers, I put in a little bit of a different category because for a lot of people, when they first watch a YouTuber, it's not the username that, um, like that's not the first thing they see. Um, it's probably the I don't know, the third maybe because it's going to be the thumbnail, the video title. And they might be very far into the video before they even look at your username. I think there's some importance to it, but it doesn't seem as relevant. You know what? To be honest, the more I talk about this, the more I'm like, this really is this is a deep topic that, like, I don't want to make too many absolute statements because I feel like there's a lot that I just don't know. And I think there's a lot of ways I could be proven wrong on a lot of these. I mean, to me it's an interesting topic and there's definitely something to be said there. And where I wanted to go to next, kind of disregarding all of that and all of the deep psychology you can go into, like at very least, I would say I think a name is really important, and I think it's something that should be thought of. And it's really easy to just write up something quick and take it for granted, but um, I don't think with anything like this that should be done. And at very least, if you don't want to think about this stuff too much, what I've been trying to do is say it out loud and think, okay, if I'm telling people about this, do I want to sound like an idiot? Do I want it to sound embarrassing? Is it something I feel comfortable as I am talking to other people about? And just, mentioning, yeah, this is the thing that do I want them giving me a weird look every time? Do I want them being like, oh, do I want to feel ashamed when I'm saying that? No, I want to have a lot of confidence behind it. I want to show that this is something I'm proud of. And So I think that's part of it. What really helped me, as I've mentioned in multiple other videos, I do another YouTube channel, and that's the one I actually try to make money off of. This is more or less just a hobby. And I work on it with one other guy, and me and him spent, I think, 3 sessions of like hour-long sessions where we would sit down and we would just try to come up with a name for our YouTube channel. And we came up with a really good name. I'm still proud of it. I don't feel embarrassed about it. I try to keep it anonymous, but the few people I've told about it, they think it's a really good name. And it's definitely recognizable enough that people in the comments will use it. We're not always getting teased about the name. Now, the subject of the channel has drifted a bit from its original intent, so the name doesn't work as well as it used to, but I think we kind of had that in mind when we came up with it as, this experiment we're doing of a YouTube channel could go in different directions. Let's try to make something broad enough that covers a bunch of things. And I think one of the most valuable things was just sitting there and just bouncing ideas back and forth, because there are some things that sounded really good to my business partner, and I was like a lot of his ideas tended to sound a little bit too edgy, and I would tell him that, and then he'd be like, yeah, that is the case. And as the guy who came up with the name ATC Diddley, a lot of my ideas were kind of goofier. And worst of all is when you come up with a name that has some hidden innuendo in it and you didn't even realize it. Like, that's not the kind of thing you want following you around on YouTube forever, unless it is. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else there on that name. I mean, I think bouncing the idea around was really helpful. Saying it out loud. I don't put too much reliance on merchandise, but if you want to do anything with that, think about, is this a name people would want to wear? I'm going to have to wrap this video up here. Also think, we thought about, if people have to tell other people about this channel, is it going to be easy to remember? Is it going to be something they feel embarrassed saying? And if someone is telling someone else, is the spelling going to be easy enough that they can pick up on that right away? Because, like, once you're a huge YouTube channel, even if people like really screw up your channel name, it doesn't really matter if they're telling someone else and the other person clicks in the wrong name. It's going to give them the right result, but our channel's not really that big yet. So yeah, I think we came up with something really good, but it took a lot of time and it took a lot of brainstorming. Maybe I'll do another video kind of deconstructing the exact brainstorming process and how we got to that, because it took a long time. I two of my favorite bands are Pink Floyd and Slipknot, and I know that was something both of those groups of guys deliberated on. Pink Floyd went through 7 other names or so. One was the Megadeths. What was it? The Teapot Dome? I don't know. I can't remember. The Tea Set. The Tea Set. That was one of theirs. Slipknot originally had a different name, and obviously you can change it, but I feel like it's just better to get it right off the bat. And yeah, I was really hoping to just hop on Spotify and get my music out to some distributor, but I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time thinking of the name, which already right now, that's just one more thing. Music is sort of like the fifth most important thing I've got going on, just out of necessity, because I've got this other YouTube channel. I've got a dog, just basic household stuff. And then I've been studying programming again, and I'm going to try to get a certification for that. I'm basically I'm fully aware as I can be, I guess. I try to be, that I'm in a very privileged position right now. So I'm just trying to make good on it and make good on that time. But anyways, before I go on too long, I'm going to wrap the video up here.